of the burr that mills the fitting surface, all right? So these are the tools you have, all right? So we've got MCXL users and we've got MCX5. So these are for the MCXL, these are for the MCX5, okay? So on the MCXL, when you're grinding, if I have to ask the question, you've got 4 burrs, right?
Yes.
So you've got the 12S and you've got the extra fine if you do the extra fine grinding. My question here, which one is responsible to mill the fitting surface of a ceramic block? Anyone know? No one?
First one.
Well, if this works, then
So this is a pair and this is a pair. One works inside and one works outside.
all right, so the one that mills the fitting surface is the
think this
12S in this case.
Outs-
But there's 2 burrs
Inside.
that you can mill. So you have the 12S and you've got the 12.
Yes.
Now the 12S in diameter is 1.35. The diameter of the 12 is under 1 millimeter, all right? And then obviously you have the geometry, the shape is a flat end burr, okay? Just take into account that the extra fine diamonds are not relevant for the lumen, so it doesn't touch the fitting surface. It only works on the outer surface, okay? Now, if I just go forward, this doesn't matter. Carbide burrs, this is for the MCXL, but it applies the same for the MCX5 when it comes to the 1 millimeter burr. So when you're milling zirconia, the fitting surface is milled with this one. So it's 1 millimeter, right? So what is this relevant for the dentist, right? So another one is this one on the MCXL, which is the cylindrical pointed burr, which works on the outer surface and works on the angles, right? Like an inlay, for example. Now what happens is this. Let's say you have a prep like that, okay? The software will give you a nice proposal. Question is, will it mill properly? It won't, because it's unable to mill that corner. So what happens is that the dentist is unable to seat that correctly. So it's not going to fit or it's going to be too high. And the reason being is that it hasn't taken into account the geometry of the burr. So you need to speak to the dentist so that they're aware of it. Another bit that we're talking about, artifacts, adjusting the margin, right? So if you see this, that's an artifact. It might not even be there, but it might be a little bit of soft tissue, whatever it is. The software will calculate a restoration to that margin. What happens is that what you get is that the tools are unable to mill that. So one, you can't see, but when you do the consider instrument at the margin, it's going to over mill that to guarantee the fit. And what happens is that clinically, you're going to have an open margin that leads to that sensitivity, staining, and secondary decay, and with that you have failure. All right, so this is something that you need to communicate. That's why I'm very, very skeptical that if I can't see the margin, I don't really want to do it because it might fail. And when it fails, it's not good for the patient, it's not good for anyone. So if I now see, this is what we need to do. So you need to round off the internal angles. So now we know that the burr is capable of milling that out, okay? And then the same thing is like, kind of like just give it clearance for the scanning. So if you've got that amalgam that is too close to that margin, if you just clear it, then you've got a clean scan. This is just for intraoral scanning, but if you take an impression, it doesn't really matter. Now this is the crucial bit, all right? Geometry. So if that incisal edge is narrower than the instrument that's grinding the fitting surface, it's going to over-mold to guarantee the fit. If the dentist hasn't done enough reduction on the labial side, you've compromised the aesthetics, because now you're going to see a cement line, all right? That's grinding. That's using the 12S, for example. This is milling. Notice same prep, but less of an over-mill over that. All right? So they need to know it's ceramic block. I'm going to use this 12S. I need more width of that, or if they've reduced the incisal edge for whatever reason, because sometimes it is what it is, but then they need to give you a little bit more space on the labial side. And this is what's important when you work with CEREC or it's just digital crowns so that you're milling. So you need to round off your angles. You need to taper that. So basically that edge there is narrower than the instrument. It's going to overmill. And what's going to happen is that you've got sufficient thickness to compensate for that, right? Another bit is this. So you've got two different types. So in terms of the actual preparation of the margins, it should always be chamfer or modified shoulder for dissipation of forces. When you have a prep like that on an incisal ledge, too thin, not too bad, right? But it's always tapering that bit there so that if you over mold, you've got sufficient thickness on the labial side that won't compromise the aesthetics of the restoration. And this is happening a lot of times if you're doing monolithic. If you layer with the ceramic, you can hide. But if you're doing monolithic, full contour, it's very difficult to hide that, all right? So it compromises the aesthetics. So that's basically CEREC. So just taking this, so if you communicate this to the dentist, then they know, and they've been informed, do you understand? But if they don't know, then they just keep on prepping because they know that, oh, nothing's wrong. That's the beauty of it. It's not just the fact that you receive the work, it's about communication, you speak to them, and with that, everyone learns. You know, I'm always learning. So
Yes.
just speak, you know. Remember that I've got a nice little,
Can you go back to the grinding and milling one?
yeah?
Just want to make sure everybody knows the difference.